Arrival of the problem child. The prison transport ship landed with a loud metallic thud on the gray landing pad. The air around the Earth Defense Diplomacy Center was still, heavy with tension. Soldiers stood in neat lines. Officers waited near the gate. But all eyes were focused on the cargo door of the ship. Inside the ship was Rila, the daughter of a powerful alien warlord from the planet Velkara. Her people were known for their pride, strength, and hatred of humans. She had been captured during a failed ambush against a peace convoy. The Earth Alliance didn't kill her. They had a different plan. They wanted to re-educate her. As the cargo door opened, steam hissed into the air. Out walked a tall alien girl with purple-gray skin, sharp yellow eyes, and a cold smirk. Her hands were in cuffs, but she walked like a queen. Her long silver hair blew in the wind, and her chin was up like she feared nothing. "She doesn't look sorry," whispered one young cadet. "She isn't," said an older guard. "She spat on the ambassador during capture. Broke a medic's nose, too." The commanding officer stepped forward. "Bring her to Captain Jaron Holt. He will handle her." Captain Jaron Holt was standing in silence, waiting. He wore a simple brown uniform, no armor, no weapons. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold steel. He was known as the Quiet Flame, a man who didn't shout but still made people shake. He had reformed 3 alien rebels before. But this one was different. As the guards pulled Rila forward, she suddenly stopped and looked at Jaron. "So, this is the human you send?" she said with disgust. "You think I'll kneel to this?" She spat. The thick green spit landed near Jaron's boots. Everyone froze. Silence fell like a storm cloud. Jaron didn't move, didn't flinch. He slowly looked down at the ground, then back up at her. His expression didn't change. No anger, no emotion. He simply gave a nod to the guards. "Remove the cuffs," he said calmly. "But sir, now." The guards looked confused but obeyed. They unlocked the cuffs. Rila stretched her arms, flexing her fingers like a cat ready to strike. She stepped closer to Jaron, eyes filled with challenge. "You're brave," she whispered. "Or stupid." Jaron still said nothing. Then, fast as lightning, Rila moved to strike him, her hand aiming for his throat. But it didn't land. Jaron's body shifted just slightly. His arm locked hers mid-air. He spun her around in one smooth movement. In less than 5 seconds, Rila was on her knees, arms twisted behind her back, gasping. And then, he did something shocking. He didn't hit her. He didn't shout. He leaned down and whispered in her ear loud enough for only her to hear. "Your people fear pain, but I will give you something worse. Control." The words sank into her mind like ice. Then he stood up, looked at the officers, and said, "Take her to Chamber 7. She's under my command now." Rila sat alone in the chamber that night. It was not a prison cell, but it felt colder. The walls were soft white, the lights dim. She had no chains, no guards, just silence. Her pride was still burning from what had happened. How did that human move so fast? How did he trap her without hurting her? Why didn't he punish her? She looked down at her hands, still free, and clenched them. This was not what she expected. She was supposed to make the humans fear her. She was supposed to laugh at their weak rules and soft voices. But that man, Captain Holt, he didn't look at her like the others did. He didn't treat her like a prisoner or a monster. He treated her like something wild, something that needed discipline. Rila wasn't sure why, but for the first time in her life she felt unsure, and that scared her more than any battle ever had. Training day, or punishment. The next morning Rila was awakened not by a guard or an alarm, but by silence. No shouting, no metal doors slamming, no orders, just silence. She sat up quickly, still alert like a trained soldier. The walls were still white, the floor was still soft. The air smelled clean and controlled. But something felt different. Her instincts told her this was no ordinary prison. Then the door opened, not with force, but with a soft click. Captain Jaren, Holt entered. He was holding something in his hand. A thin black strip, almost like a belt. But it wasn't leather. It shimmered with tiny glowing lights. Rila stared at it without blinking. "Get dressed," Jaren said, placing a gray training suit on the table. "You begin today." "Training?" Rila laughed bitterly. "You humans love that word. You mean breaking. You want me to bow like a dog?" Jaren said nothing. He placed the black strip down beside the suit and walked toward the door. "You will meet me outside in 5 minutes," he said coldly, "or I will return. And you won't like what happens next." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten her. But for some reason her heart beat faster. Rila stepped out of the chamber 5 minutes later. She wore the gray suit. It was light, flexible, and marked with the Earth symbol on the chest. Her arms were folded. She looked like she hated every second of it. Captain Holt stood in the middle of the open training yard. The sky above was covered with a transparent dome, showing a perfect view of space. Stars blinked softly beyond the glass. Around them were silent observation drones recording everything. Jaren spoke calmly. "You are here to be reprogrammed, not like a machine, but like a soldier who forgot how to obey. You misbehaved and now you learn what Earth does with chaos." Rila raised an eyebrow. "And if I refuse?" He nodded toward a drone. It projected a hologram. In it, a Velkaran warrior, one of her own people, was being sent to a mining asteroid. Shackled, starving, forgotten. Rila's face changed. Not from fear, but from something else. Shame. Jaren continued. "They gave you to me because they wanted to see if a human could tame what warlords couldn't." He stepped closer. "You are strong, but you are undisciplined, and strength without control is weakness." Rila clenched her jaw. "Your words are clever, human, but my people do not bend." "I'm not asking you to bend," Jaren said. "I'm here to teach you how to stand the right way." Then he threw the black strip toward her. It landed at her feet. "What is this?" she asked sharply. "A restraint collar?" she mocked. "No," Jaren replied. "It's a focus band. Wear it, and I'll begin your first trial. Refuse, and I'll walk away. But understand this. If I walk away, you'll never see me again. And you'll go to the asteroid next." The silence between them was thick. Rila looked down at the black strip. She hated this man, hated how calm he was, hated how her body obeyed when her mind said fight. She picked it up and slowly wrapped it around her wrist. "I'm not wearing it on my neck," she warned. "Good," Jaren said. "You're not ready for that yet." The next hour was brutal. Jaren gave her no weapons, only instructions, push-ups on burning steel, jumping over high barriers, crawling under shock wires, balancing on poles above simulated lava, and through it all, he said nothing. No praise, no anger, just calm observation. Every time she fell, he watched. Every time she cursed, he waited. And every time she looked at him with hate, he only gave her one thing in return: a challenge. Rila started to realize something strange. He wasn't trying to break her. He was trying to reveal something inside her, something buried deep. By the end of the trial, Rila fell to her knees, sweat pouring from her skin. "Why? Are you doing this?" she gasped. Jaren walked over, knelt beside her, and offered a flask of water. "Because you're not a weapon anymore," he whispered. "You're a woman who needs purpose." She stared at the water, then at his face, then slapped the flask away. But she didn't stand up, she didn't fight. And Jaren simply stood. "You'll be here again tomorrow," he said. "Same time." He turned to leave. But just before stepping out, he paused and added, "Next time, if you spill the water, you'll clean the entire training hall with your bare hands." Rila's eyes widened slightly, not from anger, from curiosity. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Not her father, not her generals, not even her trainers. What was this feeling building inside her chest? Was it hate? Was it shame? Or was it respect? That night, she returned to her chamber. The black strip was still on her wrist. She could have removed it. Could have thrown it out the airlock, but instead, she tightened it and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, I'll beat him." Rules, ranks, and reactions. The next 3 days changed everything. Rila, the once uncontrollable warrior girl from Velkara, began following Captain Jaren Holt's orders, at least on the surface. She woke up early, wore the uniform, completed every training task. But behind her cold eyes, fire still burned. She was not broken, not yet. She thought it was all a game, a test of wills. She believed if she played along long enough, the humans would lower their guard, and then she'd strike back. But something strange kept happening. Every time she tried to provoke Jaren, he turned it into a lesson. Once she stole a weapon from the training rack and aimed it at the drone camera, expecting Jaren to shout or attack her. Instead, he walked calmly across the room, stood in front of her and said, "Pull the trigger." Her finger froze. "I said pull it," he repeated, softer this time. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but confusion. "Why don't you stop me?" He looked straight into her soul. "Because if you shoot me, you go back to being just another weapon, but if you lower that gun, you'll be something your enemies will never understand." "What?" she whispered. "Free." She dropped the weapon and didn't understand why her eyes were wet. A week later, the facility changed its routine. A high-ranking Velkaran general, Rila's former commander, was being brought in for diplomatic questioning. Rila was ordered to attend the hearing, not as a prisoner, but as a reformed student under Jaren's command. Her body was cleaned, her hair tied back in a military braid. She now wore the Earth diplomat uniform with silver trim. On her wrist, the black focus band still pulsed softly with light, but she still walked like a storm ready to explode. Inside the council chamber, tall alien leaders sat beside human officials. Rila stood behind Jaren like a silent shadow. Her former commander, General Dralshak, was chained in the center. When he saw her, his eyes went wide with disbelief, and then twisted in disgust. "You wear their clothes now?" he spat. "You kneel to a human like a dog?" Rila said nothing. Jaren placed a file on the table and calmly began listing charges: war crimes, civilian attacks, broken treaties. Dralshak laughed, and then locked eyes with Rila. I raised. "You," he growled. "You were a flame, a destroyer. What did this human feed you to make you so tame?" Everyone turned to Rila, waiting for her answer. But she stayed silent until Jaren spoke. "Rila is no longer under your command. She chose a different path." Dralshak barked. "No Velkaran chooses peace. Our blood is war. She was my finest warrior, and you've turned her into a servant." Then something completely unexpected happened. Rila stepped forward, without permission. She walked slowly toward Dralshak. "Speak one more word," she said softly, "and I will show you the difference between discipline and blind rage." Everyone tensed. The guards moved forward, but Jaren raised a hand. "Let her speak." Rila now stood face to face with the war general. "I followed you for years. You told me pain was power. That fear made us strong. But the moment I fell into human hands, I saw something stronger." She pointed to Jaren. "That man defeated me without hitting me, controlled me without touching me, made me obey without ever raising his voice." She held up her wrist and showed the glowing band. "I wear this not because I'm weak. I wear it because I chose it. And that makes me more dangerous than you ever were." The silence in the chamber was heavy. Then she turned to the council and said, "I will testify, not as a prisoner, but as a witness. And I'll wear the Earth crest on my chest, not because they forced me to, but because I earned it." Later that night, Rila returned to her chamber. She stared at herself in the mirror for a long time. She no longer saw a wild alien warrior. She saw someone unfamiliar, someone calm, someone powerful. but not cruel. A knock came at the door. It was Jaren. "I didn't authorize you to speak today," he said, voice firm. "I know," she replied quietly. "You broke a rule." "I did." "And you know what happens now?" "Yes." Jaren stepped forward and placed something on her table. It wasn't a punishment tool. It was a medal. "For bravery under pressure," he said. "For showing restraint in the face of insult, and for making your choice without orders." She stared at it. "I thought I'd be punished," she whispered. Jaren turned to leave. "You were," he said. "How? You were forced to see who you really are." That night, Rila didn't sleep. She sat in her bed with the medal in one hand, and her black wristband glowing faintly in the dark. A storm was building inside her again. But this time, it wasn't rage. It was transformation. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of it. The collar of control. The next morning began like all the others, quiet and cold. But Rila knew something was different. She felt it in the way the guards avoided eye contact. She sensed it in the hallway lights, dimmed more than usual. And she confirmed it when she entered the empty training room and saw only one person waiting for her. Captain Jaren Holt. No drones, no spectators, no weapons. Just a small table in the middle. And something lying on top of it. A collar, smooth, silver, elegant, with soft white lights around the edges and an insignia of Earth's diplomatic force engraved on the side. Rila's breath caught in her throat. Her heart did something strange. It skipped. She didn't move forward. She stood at the door, tense like a lion. Jaren looked at her with calm eyes. "Today's lesson isn't physical." She narrowed her eyes. "That thing, you want me to wear it?" "No," Jaren said. "I want you to choose it." He walked around the table and stood beside the collar like it was a sacred object. "This is not a restraint," he explained. "It's called a unity band. It's used in rare cases when a warrior volunteers to serve both as a soldier and a symbol of peace. It's worn only by those who understand true control." Rila scoffed. "And if I refuse, will you send me back to the asteroid prisons or make me clean the halls again?" Jaren shook his head. "No. If you refuse, I'll salute you and let you go. You'll be transferred to another officer. No hard feelings." He paused. "But if you accept, everything changes." Rila slowly walked forward. Her eyes never left the collar. "Is this some kind of trick?" she asked. "You want to see how far you've pushed me?" "No," Jaren said softly. "I want to see how far you've come." She looked down at it. It wasn't ugly. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even locked. It was beautiful and terrifying. Because in her world, a collar meant shame, slavery, weakness. But this was being offered as a badge of self-control. Rila didn't pick it up. Instead, she sat down across from him and stared into his eyes. "Do you really think I've changed that much?" she asked. "No," he replied. She blinked. "I know it," he added. A long silence passed between them. Then Rila finally spoke in a low, trembling voice. "I used to dream of burning this place to the ground. I imagined stabbing you. I wanted to make you scream." "I know," he said. "And now, I don't understand what I want anymore." "That's because you're no longer running from who you are." Rila leaned back and crossed her arms. "I'm not weak." "I never said you were," Jaren replied. "But strength without control is fire without direction. It burns everything, even the one who lit it." She looked at the collar again. It seemed to pulse, like it was waiting for her decision. She stood, took a deep breath, and reached out with trembling fingers. But just before touching it, she stopped. Then she looked at him. "You put it on me." Jaren paused, surprised. "Are you sure?" She nodded once. "I want it, but I want you to put it on, because I want to remember this moment for the rest of my life." Jaren stepped forward. He gently picked up the collar, opened the clasp, and slowly placed it around her neck. It closed with a soft magnetic click. Rila didn't flinch. She closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt still. Not owned, not caged, but anchored. Later that night, whispers spread across the facility. "Did you hear? The Velkaran girl wore the Unity band." She volunteered. No force, no order. People couldn't believe it. Aliens in the other wings began asking for reconditioning instead of punishment. The human diplomats started seeing her as more than a symbol. She was becoming a legend. But inside her room, Rila sat alone in front of a mirror, touching the collar gently. She didn't feel powerful, she didn't feel proud, she felt exposed. Like this symbol on her neck showed her truth to the world. And the truth was she had chosen this path, not for Earth, not for peace, but for him. Suddenly, a soft knock broke her thoughts. Jaren entered, holding something behind. His back. "I have something for you," he said. He pulled out a box and inside was a new uniform. Not gray, not prisoner issue, but sleek black with silver lines, designed for a field commander. "You earned this. As of tomorrow you begin training not as a student, but as an instructor." Rila's eyes widened. "You want me to teach?" "No," he said. "I want you to lead." She opened the box fully and found a small badge attached to the collar. It read Advisor Rila, Earth Velkaran Peace Division. Her hands shook. She looked up at him. "Why me?" He stepped closer. "Because you know both sides of the war, and because no one else can do what you've done." She swallowed hard, then did something she had never done before. She stepped forward and rested her forehead lightly on his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply placed a hand on her back. In that moment, the galaxy didn't matter. The wars didn't matter. Only two beings stood in the silence of understanding. A captain and the wild girl he had tamed, not with force, but with something far stronger. Respect. The challenge. Before the council. A red alert echoed through the halls of the Earth Velkaran Peace Division. This wasn't a drill. Every diplomat, every soldier, and every alien ambassador had been summoned to the High Council chamber for an emergency meeting. Something was wrong. Something big. Rila stood in front of the mirror, now fully dressed in her black and silver commander's uniform. The Unity band around her neck pulsed softly. Her badge shined proudly on her chest. Her mind, however, wasn't calm, because this time, she wouldn't just be watching, she would be speaking, before both her former enemies and her own people. When she entered the chamber, hundreds of eyes turned toward her. Velkarans on the left, humans and allied species on the right. At the center sat the Grand Peace Council, made up of the wisest minds from across the galaxy. They controlled treaties, settlements, and planetary laws. They were also the only authority higher than Captain Holt, and today, they were not smiling. Jaren Holt stood beside her, his expression calm but alert. He leaned in and whispered, "They're testing you. Be honest. Be strong." She nodded. Then the chamber lights dimmed. A voice boomed from above. "Rila of Velkara, former warrior, now advisor, you stand before the council today to prove your loyalty and your transformation." One of the human delegates spoke. "Are you still a threat to peace?" A Velkaran elder growled, "Or a puppet of the humans?" Then from the shadows, another figure stepped forward. General Dralshak, alive, unchained, and wearing full ceremonial armor. The same general who once led the war against Earth, and once called her his greatest soldier. Rila stiffened. Jaren's eyes narrowed. "They released him?" Rila whispered. "Council politics," Jaren muttered. "They think this public challenge will prove something." Dralshak stood, proudly. She claims she's changed, that she wears their uniform by choice. He pointed at her, then let her face me in the circle. A murmur spread through the crowd. The circle wasn't just a trial, it was a public duel of honor. A sacred Velkaran tradition where words failed, and only action could speak. The council agreed. A fighting ring formed in the center of the chamber. Holograms lit the floor. 2 plasma staves appeared, one on each side. Rila stepped forward slowly. Jaren grabbed her arm gently. "You don't have to do this." She looked up at him. "I do." Then she stepped into the ring. Dralshak raised his staff first, swinging it in the air. "Let's see what their discipline has taught you." Rila said nothing. Her grip on the staff was tight. Her body ready, but her mind was somewhere else. She remembered her first day here, spitting at Jaren's boots, trying to break his rules. She remembered the black strip on her wrist, the silent training, the tears she refused to let fall. And now, she stood here, not as a prisoner, not even as a soldier, but as a living answer to a galaxy-sized question. Can a warrior learn peace without becoming weak? The fight began fast. Dralshak charged like a monster, swinging with deadly precision. But Rila was calm. She dodged, deflected, redirected. The audience gasped. This wasn't the wild warrior they remembered. This was something better. Then, with a sharp move, Dralshak spun and caught her shoulder. She stumbled, he smirked. "Still soft, girl," she replied coldly. "Still slow, old man." She struck back, not to kill, but to disarm. And within seconds his staff flew out of his hands, clattering across the floor. The room went silent. She had won, but she didn't. "Finish him." She threw her staff aside, walked over to him, offered her hand. "Stand," she said. "You taught me how to fight, but he taught me what to fight for." Dralshak stared at her hand, then slowly took it. The council rose. Cheers broke out. Alien voices. Human voices. Together. The chamber lights brightened as the council declared, "Rila is no longer a threat. She is a symbol of unity." Later that night, Rila sat alone in her quarters, exhausted but calm. The collar around her neck still pulsed with soft light. But her thoughts were not on the victory. They were on Jaren. He had changed her. Not with weapons, not with cages, but with control without cruelty. And now, she didn't just respect him. She felt something deeper, something more dangerous than war, something she didn't yet understand. A soft knock broke the silence. Jaren entered. "You were brilliant today," he said. "You didn't fight like a Velkaran." She tilted her head. "Then what did I fight like?" He smiled faintly. "Like a commander." Rila stood and walked toward him. "Why did you stay silent the entire time?" "Because you didn't need saving." They stood face to face, and for the first time, neither spoke. Their silence said everything. Rila slowly reached up to touch her collar. "I thought this would feel like a change," she said softly, "and now it feels like a promise." Surrender is not weakness. Rila stood alone in the meditation chamber, her eyes closed. But peace didn't come. Not today. Her body had rested, but her heart had not. Ever since the duel in the council chamber, things had changed, outside and inside. People looked at her differently. She had earned respect, status, even admiration, but her mind was clouded because she hadn't just won a battle that day. She had lost something too. She had lost her fear of Captain Jaren Holt, and that scared her more than any fight ever had. She opened her eyes and stared at her reflection in the mirror. The unity band still glowed around her neck. The badge on her chest still marked her as Earth's most successful alien reform. But her heart was not under control, and for someone like Rila, who had mastered blades, tactics, and even emotional restraint, this was dangerous territory. What she was feeling wasn't pride. It wasn't loyalty. It was something she didn't have a name. For every time she stood near Jaren, her pulse changed. Every time he looked at her, her breath caught. And when he walked away, something inside her wanted to follow him, not as a soldier, but as a woman. That evening, her instincts took over. She left her quarters and walked to the edge of the observation deck. Stars floated silently beyond the glass. A massive nebula shimmered in the distance. And standing alone, arms crossed, was Captain Holt. He sensed her coming but didn't turn. "I thought you'd be in bed," he said quietly. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. "Still thinking about the council?" "No," she said softly. "Still thinking about you." Jaren finally turned to face her. His eyes were steady, calm. But they held something he didn't show to others. "I don't understand it," Rila whispered. "You taught me control, obedience, strategy. You taught me how to stop fighting and start thinking." She stepped closer. "But now I'm facing a battle I can't win, because it's not on the field. It's in me." Jaren stayed quiet. Rila looked away. "In my world, surrender was shame, weakness. But now I look at you, and all I want to do is surrender." Her voice broke for the first time. "Not as your soldier, not as your student." She finally looked into his eyes. "But as a woman who's afraid of feeling something she doesn't know how to survive." The silence between them was heavier than space. Jaren took a slow step forward. "Do you know why I never punished you the way others wanted me to?" She shook her head. "Because I saw what no one else did. Beneath your anger, beneath your rebellion, there was a girl crying out to be seen." He lifted his hand but didn't touch her yet. "You didn't want power, you wanted purpose, and now that you found it, you don't know what to do with peace." She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "So what now?" He looked at her gently. "Now, you make your own choice." Then he reached behind his neck and slowly removed his officer badge, held it out to her. "Commanders follow rules, but leaders write new ones." Rila stared at the badge. Her breath quickened. "And what if I choose wrong?" she asked. Jaren finally touched her face. "Then I'll still be here." Rila's entire body trembled. She had fought wars, survived torture, faced death a dozen times, but nothing had ever made her feel this raw, this human. She slowly reached up and unlocked the unity band from her neck, held it in both hands, and instead of dropping it, she placed it in his hands. "I'm not giving this up," she whispered. "I'm giving it to you, not as a symbol of obedience." She looked deep into his eyes, "but as a promise that I am yours, freely, fully." Jaren stared at the band, then at her. "I don't want control over you." "I know," she replied. "That's why I trust you with it." Later that night, in her chamber, Rila lay awake. Jaren hadn't kissed her. He hadn't claimed her. He had simply taken her offering and whispered, "I'll carry this with honor." And somehow that meant more to her than any touch ever could, because for the first time in her life, Rila had surrendered without defeat, and it had made her stronger than she'd ever been. The next day, the galaxy erupted in chaos. A rebel faction of Velkarans had destroyed a human medical ship near the border. War was knocking again. The council called for immediate action, but this time, Rila wasn't just attending. She was leading. Earth's first cross-species diplomatic commander, she would speak to the Velkaran rebel queen face to face. No guards, no weapons, just words. And at her side would stand the only human she'd ever trusted, Captain Holt. Before she boarded the ship, she turned to Jaren one last time. "What if I fail?" He smiled faintly. "Then we fail together." She looked down at her badge, then back at him. "No," she said. "We win. Together." And with that, the problem child of Velkara became the voice of peace. Not because she was tamed, but because she had finally tamed herself. The discipline of love. The diplomatic starship Unity Flame soared through dark space toward the border of Velcaron-controlled territory. Every system was on high alert. Earth's embassies were evacuating. War signals echoed in distant channels. A fragile peace was about to collapse, and at the center of it all stood Rila, now known across dozens of systems as the Disciplined. Flame. Her transformation from violent rebel to peace commander was no longer just a miracle. It was a symbol of hope. But this mission was her hardest test yet. She wasn't facing soldiers or weapons. She was facing her own people, and the woman who had once trained her to kill. Inside the main chamber of the ship, Rila stood beside Captain Jaren Holt, her armor black and silver, the Unity band glowing once again on her neck. It had been returned to her, not as an order, but as a gift. She had chosen to wear it once more. By her side, Jaren carried no weapon, no badge of rank, just silent presence. She turned to him. "What if they don't listen?" "Then speak louder," he replied. "And if they attack, then I'll stand in front of you." Rila gave a small, sad smile. "That's what I'm afraid of." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Not all surrender is weakness," he reminded her. "You taught me that." The shuttle entered the warship of the Velcaran Resistance, a dark spiked vessel called the Bloodcrest. Inside waited Commander Kael'Tara, once Rila's instructor in the old ways of conquest, a woman as cold as ice and twice as sharp. When the doors opened, Rila stepped out first. Every Velcaran eye turned, some hissed, others stared in silence. She wore Earth's symbol, she wore a collar that glowed, and yet she walked with pride. Kael'Tara rose from her stone seat and smirked. "So it's true. The favorite weapon of Velcara is now a pet on a leash." Rila didn't flinch. "I am no one's pet," she said calmly. "I am a bridge between worlds." Kael'Tara circled her like a predator. "You wear their symbol, their skin. You speak like them." "No," Rila corrected. "I speak like me." Finally. The hall trembled as the rebel soldiers surrounded them. Jaren moved to step forward, but Rila held up a hand. "No," she whispered. "This is my fight." Kael'Tara barked. "You are here to beg for peace?" "No," Rila replied. "I am here to give you a choice." She held up a hologram of the destroyed medical ship. Images of burned patients, dead children. "Was this honor?" she asked, voice shaking. "Was this justice?" Kael'Tara growled. "They invaded our space. They came to heal our wounded," Rila shouted back. "And you killed them." Her voice rang through the chamber. Silence followed. Then she said something that no Velcaran had ever dared to say. "You are not fighting a war anymore. You are running from peace because you don't know how to live without pain." Kael'Tara stepped forward, face inches from hers. "You've forgotten what it means to be Velcaran." Rila calmly replied, "No, I've remembered what it means to be whole." Then she turned her back to Kael'Tara. "Fully, a death sentence in Velcaran culture. If you still believe I'm weak," she said softly, "then strike me down." Kael'Tara raised her blade. Tension crackled through the air like lightning. Jaren's hand twitched toward his hidden sidearm, but he didn't draw. Rila didn't move. She stood, exposed, but proud. And then Kael'Tara dropped the blade. It clattered to the floor. "You are stronger than all of us," she whispered, "because you dared to love something other than war." The rebellion ended that day, not with fire, not with blood, but with discipline and love. Weeks later, Earth hosted the new Unity Summit, where former enemies now stood as allies. Rila sat at the head table, no longer wearing the collar, but now wearing a medal made of earth steel and Velcaran crystal. Jaren stood beside her, silent as always. But when the summit ended and the applause faded, he reached out, took her hand in front of everyone, and she let him. And for the first time, the galaxy saw something greater than strength or politics. They saw two souls who had broken the old cycle. That night, alone in her chamber, Rila sat. Across from Jaren. I never said thank you, she whispered. He tilted his head. For what? For giving me a war I didn't know I needed. Jaren stepped closer. And what war was that? She looked into his eyes. The war to become myself. Then finally she reached for his hand and pulled him close. No ranks, no orders, no walls, just two warriors who had chosen to surrender, to love.